I'm glad you're here with us. This is Pastor Jeff from First-Calvary Baptist Church of North Andover, Massachusetts. I wanted to come and talk to you for a few minutes. I like to do this periodically. I'd like to talk to you today about being afraid. Over and over in the Bible, it says we shouldn't be. We should not be afraid. And here's a few examples. From Isaiah 40, "Get you up to a high mountain, O Zion, herald of good tidings. Lift up your voice with strength, O Israel, or O Jerusalem, herald of good tidings. Lift it up. Do not fear." Isaiah 41, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you." From Isaiah 43, "Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." And from Luke chapter 2, the angel speaking to the shepherds. "The angel said to them, 'Do not be afraid, for see, I bring you good news of great joy for all people.'" And from Luke chapter 12, Jesus to his disciples and to all of us, "Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." Now, you may wonder, why fear? Why now? Well, this is a fearful time. There are many examples all around us of people who are being afraid. And we had an experience recently. My wife and I were on vacation, and we drove up Mount Washington here in New Hampshire. And Mount Washington here in New Hampshire is 6,288 feet high. It's the highest elevation of anywhere in New England. And this fit in with what we like to do. We started a few years ago when we went on vacation for the first time, just the two of us, when our children were fully grown and we were able to get out and about, and Sherry had an atlas out. We were driving to Indiana to see family, and she said, "Did you know the highest elevation in the state of Indiana is half an hour from us to the north?" I said, "Well, let's go. We don't have anybody to stop us. Why don't, or any place we have to be in any particular moment, so why don't we just go and see it? The highest elevation in Indiana." It amused us because Indiana is not exactly the high elevation sort of state you would think. And it was about 1,400 feet high. And yes, 1,400 feet above sea level. And that gave us a laugh, but it was nice. It had a book for you to sign. There was a bench there. There was a geographical survey marker in the ground. There was more to it than we expected. And so we were hooked. We went on to Ohio. We've done Pennsylvania and Delaware and New Jersey. New Jersey is beautiful, by the way. And now we have gone up Mount Washington in New Hampshire. We intend to pick up Maryland and West Virginia sometime fairly soon when we go out to visit my family. But there's a problem with this, and this is where "do not be afraid" comes in. Both of us have a fear of heights. And here we are going over a mile up into the sky. And there was a fair warning for us at the base. There was a sign that said, if you're afraid of heights, this road is going to make you uncomfortable. Well, that was a bit of an understatement. Uncomfortable. But let me tell you why it made you uncomfortable. When you're going in the lower elevations, you're going on this windy ribbon of road, and it's not too bad because you've got trees all around you, and that continues, and the trees get shorter and shorter until you hit 4,400 feet, and then the trees just give it up. They said, "Forget it, we're not doing this anymore." And all you have is what they call tundra vegetation, as in Arctic tundra, and so it's little scrubby stuff. And now you can see very easily over the edge of the road, down cliffs, and there are no guardrails. There's a little rock at the edge, and there's this scrub, but you have a very clear view of what is over the edge. And so, yeah, it triggers a pretty good fear response if you're afraid of heights. Now, we had gone and fortified ourselves before this. We went over to Polly's Pancake Parlor in Sugar Hill, New Hampshire. It's about an hour away from Mount Washington. We got ourselves fortified. We found out they had buckwheat cakes there, which was something from growing up in West Virginia I was rather fond of, or have family there. And you could see Mount Washington off in the distance, an hour away. And it was just this little cute thing sitting way over there. But as we drove towards it and it got bigger on the horizon, you started to get that feeling you get in the line when you're waiting to go on a roller coaster, and you're excited, but you're a little bit scared at the same time. Maybe that's just me, I don't know. But It's a mixed feeling, and I started to feel that. And yet the prophet Isaiah told Israel, go up the high mountain. Speak up. Don't be afraid. And it goes on to say a little later that God will be like a good shepherd who protects the sheep. You have nothing to be afraid of as you go up there. Sure, mountain climbing is scary. You have this fear of falling off, but don't be afraid because God is there to protect you. So, off we went. And when we face scary things, it's good to remember that God is with us. We don't have to do scary things alone. So whatever you may be facing that's fearful, just remember God is with you in that situation. You are not there alone. And if it's something like a medical procedure, God has put talented people in your path to help you through those difficult times. So it helps to steady the nerves when we're going to do something a little nerve-wracking. And we climbed up to above the tree line. We had those really long drops right beside us on the road, and you didn't want to look over them, really, because you were afraid that if you looked in that direction, your car was going to go in that direction, and you'd go down the mountainside in an uncontrolled way, and we didn't want any of that. So, and there were places regularly on the mountain where there were parking areas where you could have pulled over. And what those were for is the road is steep enough that when you're coming back down, you have to come down in first gear. And those regular parking lots are there so you can cool your brakes off if you've used them a little too much. So it's an interesting situation. We could have gone into those and turned around and come back down, and we'd still have the sticker for the car that says, this car climbed Mount Washington. We wouldn't have had to tell anybody that we didn't make it, but we kept going. And as we got up and we're above the tree line now, we started, this is totally unintentionally, but we started to make ridiculous statements, like what genius decided to put a road up the side of this mountain, and what genius decided to follow that road? Who put this road here? They follow mountain goat tracks? And it made us laugh. A panicky laugh, but laugh nonetheless. And that laughter helps to push that fear out of the way, because it's hard to be afraid when you're laughing, isn't it? That was a good thing to learn, and a way to follow the biblical admonition not to be afraid. So that laughter is like the assurance that God gives. I strengthen you. I help you. I uphold you. I give you laughter and humor so that you don't have to be so afraid. And that laughter was like God's assurance. And we felt that as we got near to the top. And the prophet Isaiah also reminds us that God made us, God sent us Jesus to save us. God knows us by name and tells us that we are God's own. With friends like that, what do we have to be afraid of? As in the movie Aladdin, which my kids loved when they were little, the genie says, "You ain't never had a friend like me." That's true. That's true. We've got God. We have Jesus. We have got a lot of help on our sides. We don't need to be afraid. So we got up to the parking lot at the top. We're just below the summit. And you have to climb this wooden staircase up over the rubble that gets you up to the top of the mountain. And being a person who's afraid of heights, I have this aversion to these stairs that don't have vertical risers on them. The irrational part of me is afraid I will fall through. The honest part of me knows that I could not do that since I was maybe 3 years old. I simply would not fit. But there they are. Didn't like them. But I started to climb them, and thinking back on everything that we had done, all the drive that we had had up there, that mile into the sky, really put this fear, this aversion to these open tread staircase in perspective. And I laughed off that fear. After all, if I had slipped through, I would have fallen, 3 feet to the mountain below me, rather than a great drop off of a cliff. So it was laughable, and I laughed at it, and that particular fear evaporated. And I have a feeling it's never coming back, because I've had a new perspective. And so we got up to the top, and when the clouds parted, yes, we were high enough to be actually in the clouds up there on the mountain. But when the clouds parted, we had a beautiful view. And we could remember the angel speaking to the shepherds on the night that Jesus was born. Do not be afraid, for I bring you good news of great joy for all of the people. And we felt that great joy in that moment. We had made it to the top. We were surrounded by this beautiful view. And we really drank it in. But in the back of your mind, there's that fear in there again, because once you've come up, you still have to go back down. And I was aware of that. I was the driver. I was thinking ahead towards having to go down the other side, and there was really nobody that could rescue me from that. It was going to happen. And I may have expressed something of my reservation when I was in the gift shop that they have up there. Yeah, they've got a gift shop and a restaurant up there as well. And a very kind worker in the shop, she said to me, "You do know that road is wider than it looks. The narrowness is an optical illusion." And when I thought about it, it was true. Because when we and another car had to pass each other going up and down, there was plenty of room. It just didn't feel that way when you were on the road by yourself and you were viewing things through the lens of fear. And now that is another really important thing, because fear makes us see the world differently. It distorts our view of reality. Actually, can you think of any situation where you were fearful because you're in a new place and you really didn't have anything to be afraid of, but it was really hard to see that because of the fear you were looking at things through? It happened to me when walking our dog, Ginger. She was a big German Shepherd mixed breed, and she was absolutely certain that I had to be protected from every other dog on the planet, whether they were great big St. Bernards or little tiny Chihuahuas. And that got pretty embarrassing and kind of aggravating, and so we would walk at 10 o'clock at night. And when we were out at 10 o'clock at night, we were quite alone. No one else was out. And part of that is viewing the world through the lens of fear. Every house we passed, the television was on. And people were being told that outside their door was a fearful place to be. And so, except for a few teenagers talking on the phone to friends they didn't want their parents to hear them talking to, we ruled the night. And we ruled it because people were and are afraid. And we really have to rein that in. We have to get over that fear. So, we were assured that the road was quite wide enough that we wouldn't have any trouble getting back down. And then an amazing thing happened. We started back down, and yes, we have our little manual transmission car, and we're going down slowly in first gear. And then we were shocked because the whole world, that view that we had been avoiding on the way up, we couldn't avoid on the way down, and the whole world spread out beneath us. Mountains and valleys and forests. It was gorgeous. It was stunningly beautiful. And the road that when you were going up, you felt like you could slip off of it at any second, that you were just clinging to it. On the way back down, it suddenly became this broad safety net sweeping out below you. The entire view changed, and that fear evaporated in the face of awe, in the face of just this gorgeous view. Jesus says we should not be afraid because it is God's pleasure to give us the kingdom. And he reminds us that we should not store our treasure in earth, but store it in heaven. And I can tell you there is no earthly object that was the equal to that particular view. It was truly amazing. There was no thing that you could own that would bring you that level of awe or that level of joy. It was amazing. And we got back down to the bottom of the mountain, and there was another surprise waiting for us. God has a way of speaking to us through many different experiences and in many different ways. And God spoke to us when we got down the mountain, having put our trust in the God who loves us and the angel who brings us good news, and in Jesus himself, all assuring us we shouldn't be afraid. Suddenly, we were worry-free and relaxed. We had faced our fears, we had overcome them, and we had received peace in return, a truly abiding and beautiful peace that I won't soon forget. So we need not to let our fears paralyze us. We need not to let them make us angry and snippy people. We need to not get into a defensive crouch and view everyone as a potential enemy. We need to avoid that. Instead, we need to face our fears with laughter. We need to act in faith. We need to enjoy the joy that comes with facing our fears down, living a better life where fear has been conquered. Working with these fears, I faced another situation that was kind of stressful and provided some fear. I was asked to officiate my daughter and now my son-in-law's wedding. It was in a beautiful garden setting. It was an outdoor wedding. And I was nervous because I had forgotten to print out the service actually. And so I was going to be using my tablet, and I had no backup, and tablets don't work on really sunny days very well. It's very hard to see them. And I was really concerned about whether or not I was going to be able to see the service well and perform it smoothly as I wanted to, particularly for my daughter. I mean, my goodness, you want to get that right. And it turns out my fears were pointless because the wedding was at 4 p.m, and the garden had trees all around the edge of it. And by 4 p.m, the sun was low enough that the entire garden area was in shade, and I could see perfectly. So my fears were for nothing. And that proved to be another wonderful experience and a very good learning experience. So this trying to be fearless works for big things like mountains and for all the little everyday challenges that we face each and every day, each and every one of us. So I'm wishing you a fearless week ahead and a wonderful time experimenting with putting fear behind all of us and living a more joyous life that will be an inspiration to others. Now, I hope to come to you every couple of weeks with some little topic that we can discuss. And if there's any that you would like to hear about, please get a hold of me. You can use the First-Calvary Baptist Church Facebook page to get a hold of us. And let me know if there is a topic you would like to discuss. And if you find yourself in North Andover, Massachusetts, you have a standing invitation. Come and see us on Sunday morning. Come and worship with us. We'd be glad to have you. Everyone's welcome. And if you can't make it in person, please drop by our Facebook page or my YouTube channel and join us for worship online. In the next few weeks, I expect we're going to be improving our online capabilities, so you'll get a more interesting, visually appealing service that you can watch. So we'll be glad to have you however you can come. Be fearless and join us. God bless you all, and have a good day. We'll talk again later. Bye-bye.